Hello again, and welcome to part two of the 2018 FBR Performance Series. Today's webinar is Bringing Your Ops and Development Stars into Alignment. And to shed some light on this topic, we have two pairs of Ops and Development Stars to discuss how they work together in their respective companies. Our first pair joins us from Wildbirds Unlimited. From the development side, we have Amy Moore, the Director of Retail Operations, and that's from the operations side. And she's joined by Paul Pickett, their Chief Development Officer. And opposite them is our duo from Pillar to Post Home Inspections, Charles Furloughs, SVP of Operations, and Eric Stewart, the Marketing Manager. So thank you all for joining us. And just as a reminder to the audience, we received some great questions from you all during our first session. And our panel today has a wealth of knowledge to share, so don't be shy about chatting in your questions along the way, and we'll weave them in or save them till the end as best we can. So now here to moderate the discussion for today's panel is FBR's President and COO, Michelle Rowan.
Thank you, Mike. And I don't think you were calling anyone on our panel old with that remark of how much knowledge they have. So let's get started. Thank you guys for being on and for sharing your experience today. And I'm lucky enough to work with both of your brands and know that you are very good at aligning your development, your operations teams to help your franchisees. So I'm excited for you to share some stories with our audience today. So we're going to throw up a poll for the people that are attending to also answer as we talk. With the first question, I want to start with the Wildbirds team. And Amy, I'll start with you, and then Paul, you can jump in. And with that, Amy, if you want to just give us a quick kind of recap of your brand, of how many units you have and your role, or how many franchisees you're supporting. But I want to start with, how much overlap is there between your operations and development team? And what I want to look for specifically is, are you guys participating in each other's meetings, and do you kind of check in with each other? What frequency, if you are doing that, is happening at your brand?
Great. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the panel. I've attended a lot of your webinars, and so it's nice to be asked to be on this side of it. I am with Wildbirds Unlimited, and our brand size is approximately 332 open. At our franchise support center, we have about 40 plus staff, and on my operations team, it's made up of 13 total members, including me. Within that, I have, most of those are coaches, so they provide the one-on-one support to our franchisees. I also work with someone in the department who does communications. We have HR and training, and we have a retail programs manager. So that's how the particular operations team is set up. As far as the question with overlap between ops and development, we have quite a bit, and in talking with other organizations, we're very fortunate to have a really positive working relationship. Our team has a weekly meeting. I think it's one of the highlights of the week, and I say that because a lot of my team members are on the call. And we do bring in the development manager. And it's twofold. It is great feedback from her to hear our conversations about how to communicate better with our franchisees, how to provide support, what's going on in the field, what do we hear, how can we do better, and then she provides us with an update status as far as what's going on with development. So it's really a great opportunity for us to be aligned. She also participates. We do even book clubs or TED Talks and go through either the book or the video and then try and tie it back into how can ops and development work even better together. We also
well, hold on one second, Amy. I love that idea. So tell me, how are you guys picking those books or those TED Talks? Are you rotating who's taking those? And you're saying that the development and the operations team are both involved in the same content?
Correct. The recent one that we finished was a great book. It's called The Influencer, and it's on with the crucial conversations. And so we take segments of the book and rotate throughout the meeting. Somebody kind of oversees the discussion, and that is geared towards, again, how to better understand, our owners, how to positively affect change, how to influence behavior. And so that's something that we took on. And then we use a company called Zoracle that helps us identify, certain elements of our candidates and our franchisees. And so that was an example where development kind of headed up that training and coordinated it. And so we're all moving in the same direction as far as how to better understand and communicate with our franchisees.
I love that. Thank you. So I don't know if you want to give us some other stuff. I kind of interrupted you, or if you want Paul to jump in and also share kind of the development side. It's up to you guys.
Yeah, I can jump in. Paul Pickett here, and again, I'll reiterate what Amy said. Thank you. It's always an honor to be included, and these sessions are amazing. Really, that you guys help franchising in general, so we really appreciate it. Amy and I also have a standing meeting every 2 weeks. We talk every single day, of course, but it's a more formal setting where we go over the list of where we're adding, where the development team is adding new units, and talking about communication with the surrounding franchisees to ensure that we've got collaboration going on there. We talk about our stores that are transferring or renewing and how we can work together to affect change and make that process easier. Anyone that may be needing some extra assistance from the development side, whether that's me reaching out to say, what can we do about a lease negotiation, or in the case where somebody may have an anchor who's gone dark, and knowing that we're going to have to work together to really get that franchisee the tool set that they need, and tapping into the relationship that development has in the beginning part of the franchisee's journey with our brand, and saying, hey, is there any way that you can get involved in this communication? You may have some input. So just working together collaboratively and making sure we know where we're going and what we're doing.
Good. So lots of overlap.
Yeah, there really is. There is a lot of overlap, but I think that's we try to do that with all of our departments here, and keep those silo walls as low as possible. We do have an annual, very formal new owner team, which is ops and development retreat, where we go back and we look at the last year of activity and results, and where we have opportunities to both congratulate ourselves and also be very critical. How we can do things differently. I think one of the results from last year's retreat was involving one of the new owner coaches a little bit earlier in the development process, and getting them to communicate with franchisees when they're at the time that they're submitting business plans, to really go over some of the ideas that the franchisee has brought to the table, and using that opportunity to just make sure that we're all aligned. And then joint visits to stores. I do a lot of store visiting, bring back ideas, opportunities for improvement, and Amy does the same thing and say, here's something that we may have been able to ferret out earlier in the development process that ended up being an issue, and here's what I'd like you to do in the future when you're working with candidates to ensure that that doesn't crop up again.
We do a fun tour. We call it the mistletoe tour, and it's right around the holiday season. And the intent is to kind of blitz and see quite a few stores, and it's to go in and find out, how are they doing? How are we doing in our support services? A brief, what tools are they using? And so this past tour was fun just because, again, we took development, we had an ops team, and it gives us an opportunity to go in, again, see a lot of stores, and then talk collaboratively, again, from the development or the operational side. What could we have done differently? What worked well? And so that's a fun thing that we look forward to each year as well.
Perfect. And how long is that tour that you're doing? Because you said you're doing it annually. And what is your goal to number of franchisees or stores to visit?
We'll do a section. We might see 12 or 15 stores. It's over a couple days. As we go out, we will take photos, or we'll interview the owner, and we'll post it on our what we call our site-wide, our intranet. And so it's an intent to recognize an owner who has done something well, or that time of year share a product success or something that's going well with the team. So more of a fun versus an official, full day site visit.
And then this year I kind of tagged on, and there were how many on your group?
We had maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah, 5 or 6 people. So I decided, because I don't have a competitive bone in my body, I said, fine, I'm going to go out by myself. And I did 12 stores in 4 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I cranked it out and saw new stores, multi-unit stores, a couple of transferees, multi-unit stores in a pretty tight market size from Maryland down into Virginia, to do again, and came back and said, this is what I learned. This is what I would do differently in the future. This is where we really need to repeat ourselves, because this is where it's really, really working. And here's opportunities for everybody to improve the process and improve the choices of the franchisees.
I think that's great, because then you also know what you're selling.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've always done that. I mean, I try to visit, I try to visit as many stores as I possibly can per year. I think it's really important to connect with them after the development process and, learn from both your successes and if you've made a misstep. And try
yes, I think that's perfect. And I'm going to turn it over to Pillar to Post to jump in here. And as I do that, I would love if people listening and joining us would chat in. If you have your development team visiting stores or markets, if you don't have a physical space, after they make the sale, after the franchisee is up and running. And I'm not talking about during a grand opening, but really, is your development team in the field revisiting those candidates they brought on board? Because I do think it's rare, and I'll just kind of capture that because we didn't set it up as a poll question. I'll capture that and kind of share it if anyone says that they are back with you guys, and then we'll go to Pillar to Post. So same questions for you guys, Charles and Eric. And Charles, I'll start with you if you'd like, to just kind of explain the overlap that you have between your departments.
I'll be happy to. Again, thank you for having us. We're thrilled to be here. It's an interesting topic, and just listening to Paul and Amy there, it's amazing the number of things that are very similar, even though our businesses are very different. So we are in the residential home inspection space. We've got this year we'll have well over 600 franchisees, and we've got hundreds more inspectors that work for those guys. We're in about 47 states and 8 provinces, US and Canada. Our operations team is made up of about 14 people. That includes what we call regional directors, and then we have a separate set of what we call the Foundations for Success program, which are guys that just work with our first-year franchisees. They're called startup directors. So those do that. And then we have an operations support department, and these are people that work inside the home office and are just doing all of the behind-the-scenes things associated with operations for our franchisees and other aspects of the company. Then we also have our development side. And we've got a development team there of 4 people, and that's been a big part of our growth over the last many years. So we started in business about 1994, and are still operating in a similar fashion today. So on the just some thoughts, and trying not to repeat everything that Paul and Amy said as well, but one of the main things that we do, just trying to keep that overlap. So you just mentioned you need to know what you're selling. That's absolutely true, and so we try to keep those silos away as much as possible, and integrate all the different parts of the company. One example of that is, and this was just a couple of weeks ago, we had a strategic planning meeting, and so we're there for a couple of full days, and there's all of our development people sitting right beside our operations people, and a number of accounting people and the training and different people in the organization. And just with all of us being involved, that really, number one, brings a great understanding between the different parts of the business, including development and operations, and just gets us all of one mind. The other thing, well, another big thing that we do is really two different things. One is all of our development people, and really most everybody else in the company, when they come in, one of the first things that they do is they sit through our entire initial training that all of our franchisees go through. And this is an important thing. So it kind of goes back to what you were saying about knowing what you're selling. These guys see firsthand the entire thing, what our franchisees are exposed to in the beginning. They eat lunch with them, eat dinner with them, stay in the same hotel with them, ride back and forth to the training center together. All of the go out and do actual home inspections together. So not only, excuse me, not only do they get to see the actual training, but they get to hear what the franchisees are saying. Are they fearful, or have they been overcome with too much information? What are their hopes for the future when they get back home and get started? So that, I think that's a great thing for our development people. And then the other thing is we have regional meetings. So we don't have the brick and mortar situation like Wildbirds was talking about. Our guys are mostly home-based businesses. Quite a few of our larger operators do have brick and mortar, but really this is a home-based type business. And so one way that we get together with those guys is at least twice a year we have regional meetings, and there's about 22 of them all over the U.S. and Canada, all usually within fairly easy driving distance for our franchisees, and it's usually a full day, sometimes a day and a half type of meeting, and at various times, certainly toward the beginning of their employment with us, but even later on, these development guys will come and sit in those meetings. And that's even better, because not only are they exposed to our newer guys that will be there as well, but they'll also be there and get to hear the everything that's coming from franchisees who maybe have been around for 20 years or more. So it's great to hear that. And then the daily communication, weekly meeting, we have weekly meetings as well that the development leader would be in. It's just trying to keep everyone with a consistent understanding, a consistent message. We don't want any promises being made ahead of time that we're not going to be able to live up to. And we've got a lot of great things going on, and we want our development guys to know exactly what those are and how they'll affect our franchisee. That's great. Is that a good start?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Yeah, and Eric, I don't know if you have anything to add to what Charles did, and I'll let you answer that. And if not, I'm going to start the next question that I think is really more on your side. But did you have anything else you wanted to add on how they overlap that Charles didn't address?
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is just also keeping kind of the ad hoc communication open. So constantly, especially because we, as Charles mentioned, the size of our teams, those teams are also very distributed. So we have some people in our home office out of Toronto, and a large portion of the operations team and development teams are out of home offices spread throughout the United States and Canada. So we have those direct lines of communication open constantly, that it's not unnormal to just have a quick call with someone on their operations side to seek clarity on an issue, or other way around.
That's what I was going to ask. So the open communication, it's mostly phone calls, or using email, or using chat? Or do you really encourage people to just jump on the phone?
Kind of all of the above. So Skype, so you can actually see the person, or email, phone call, whatever. But I think it's just we kind of have that expectation that
being
it's
accessible.
Yeah, exactly.
You answer that. Awesome. So not a lot of people chimed in on the question as to, do you have development folks visiting post franchisee opening? From those that did, it was about half and half that do have development going out. And then with the poll question that we asked, the majority of teams, it sounds like, are sitting in on each other's meetings, which is excellent. 85% to some extent are doing that. So that's really good. Before I move to the next question, I want to just ask Wildbirds, how are you guys communicating with each other when you're in between those meetings? Are you using Skype, phone call, emails, messaging? What is your preferred method between the team?
I mean, we're all based here in one central office too, so it's really easy. Most of it is, face-to-face communication. It could be via email, so that's most of how we collaborate. As far as with our owners, again, similar means, but we've really tried to up our game on doing more of the video chats, and that's made we feel a big difference in getting even more engagement.
And so when that became a big part of the ongoing coaching technology strategy, I guess, is that they told us, and we immediately integrated that into our process, so that when we're getting into the, just the standard calls that you have with a candidate, we do about at least half of them are done with video conferencing on that same platform. So then also the candidate is really used to using it.
That's a great idea. Okay, so, and I'm sure everyone at your office is dressing nicer if they know they're on camera.
At least from the top up, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, at least
sweatpants below, but yeah.
Love it. So Eric, I want to go back to you and ask you to start the next question with you. How does the marketing and the PR team factor into helping to align your development and operations side of the house? Are they tasked with bringing in the leads? And if so, how do you ensure that the messages align with both the development and the operations objectives?
Yeah, so technically where I fit in is actually directly on the marketing department. So I am the marketing manager for franchise recruitment. So I report into our VP of marketing, but functionally I am a member of the recruitment team. So I'm involved in more recruiting meetings than I am just marketing meetings. And we really don't let those silos get in the way of your marketing or development or operations. So I kind of overlap that marketing recruitment world. And that change actually only happened a couple years ago. So I was in this role before reporting into development only. And that's where we saw that we were kind of losing opportunities on our brand side and our consumer marketing side for areas to also market the franchise opportunity. So we merged that kind of into one, and over the last couple of years, it's worked really well to just have our messaging stay consistent regardless of who we are targeting, and just, again, not having those silos built up and having it more as one connected team. So it almost doesn't exist, because that's my whole role, is the marketing specifically for recruitment.
Love it. And so, and Paul and Amy, I think you guys have your franchise development marketing is in-house as well. I don't know if you have anything to add as far as how they kind of capture the objectives for both the development and the operations teams.
Yeah, I mean, Eric said it very well. I would just say ditto. We don't have a single individual who is champions the franchise development marketing, but we just work very collaboratively with our consumer marketing department, who helps us with our marketing. So, and it's the same, very similar audience. So most of our franchisees begin as consumers and are, if they love the brand, and that's how they got interested in then opening their own franchise.
So you're planting the seed on the consumer side in your marketing. That's good.
Yeah,
so let's stay with Wildbird. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say we use a content marketing company that I had managed, and they were doing honestly 4 stories a month about franchise development. And what we realized is when every once in a while we would throw in a cool consumer story, and that actually got more traction than some of the development stories. So we actually switched it over. So now we and our franchisees have embraced this too, using that company, and they do 2 very focused consumer stories and 2 development stories. And what we've got is now our franchisees are sharing those stories and using them in their own marketing, which helps development too.
That's great.
So,
that's great. Very creative. So let's stay with wild birds. So Amy, I want to ask you guys, how do you ensure that the teams are listening to each other? Because it's not always sunshine and roses. You're not always going to be aligned with kind of what's happening. So when you guys are struggling and you have to find a solution, how do you come together to resolve your issues or where you're not aligned?
Yeah, a couple things to touch on. So we've tried to instill an internal philosophy of, how did I do? Of always asking that, starting with each individual, whether it's on a call to a franchisee, a training presentation, a conversation that maybe involved conflict. So I think that allows everyone to set a good stage. If you're genuinely asking, hey, how did I do on that? It shows that you're wanting to improve and you're open to change. And so I think that starts a good process when 2 groups have a difference of opinion. But we usually bring, when there's a difference of opinion, we bring in a larger team, and we all have an opportunity to state why we may have concerns, or what are the pros and cons. And we all generally want the end solution. We might have different opinions, and we hear each other out, and hopefully come to a resolution that everyone can agree upon. So even we have a multiple store process that involves development. It involves operations, but the end decision really lies in the operations team to figure out, is this candidate able to move forward, equipped to move forward. And I think it's a good process. Anything?
Yeah, I mean, ops has ultimate decision-making authority. The buck stops with them on approving or saying no to a candidate. So we don't get the final say. Ops gets the final say. The other side of it is that our founder and CEO, Jim Carpenter, years ago when I first started, said, you're responsible for getting them in, but you have to live with the decisions you make, and you're responsible for getting an individual out of our franchise system. That the goal is that they retire and sell their business for a nice multiple of discretionary cash flow, and everything is kittens and roses at the end. But it's also, if it does go poorly, that's my responsibility ultimately to manage that process. So I have to live with my mistakes and celebrate my successes, but it's on my back.
So you're saying that when it's time to approach a franchisee about an exit because they're not happy and you can't pull them back in, or they're not doing well, you're involved in that process, not just from reselling the store. You're having those conversations with them as well.
Yeah.
That it's time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, big time. Maybe being the one delivering the message that this is no longer a good match and you need to think about all the options of how to leave. Doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, well, that's good. Yes. No, this is worst case scenario.
But it happens. It happens.
So Charles and Eric, how about you guys? How do you resolve issues as they come up if we haven't touched on anything? And also too, and I know we're going to ask the question later too more about the development process, but just how heavily is development involved in those exit conversations, or ops involved in, is this person a right fit to bring on board?
So first of all, that's interesting what Paul just said. We do not do that. A lot of times our development guys will keep a great relationship with the franchisee that they bring into the system. They meet them in different meetings that we have in different locations, but they're really not involved in their day-to-day work or situations that come up. So that's an interesting thing to think about that I will think about. I'm glad you said that.
Well, and as you're thinking about it, and I want to remind people that are listening to the conversation, pipe in if you have questions. We're going to address anything while we're on the topic or ask it at the end. So definitely put them out there, but also too, chat in if your development team is involved in any of those exit conversations, not just the resale portion of it, but having that franchisee come to the realization that it's time to kind of move on. So if you want to type in that stuff as Charles, you continue too, that would be great.
Yeah, so for us, that side of it is handled by the operations people. But I was thinking about that keeping everyone aligned piece. And if we look at it simply, development people want to sell franchises, and operations people want franchises that are sold to do well. But I think where we've had success is taking great strides every opportunity we get to make sure that those actually cross over. So for instance, our operations people actually do want more new people coming into their regions. They really want them. And so that causes them to really want to work with the development people to help make sure that happens and happens strategically. By the same token, our development people rely a lot, as all franchise sales do, on good validation from our existing franchisees. So when problems do arise and development people hear about them, they might hear about them from some of these calls that have come back, or the information from those validation calls comes back to them during the course of the process, and they will follow up with our operations people, because they want to see, when these guys go in, they want to see happy, successful franchisees. And so it really, both want the same thing. And that to me is what makes it work so well. Now, as far as the approval process, we use what we call an executive call. An executive call is usually with myself or the CEO of the company. But we do have one or two more, but none of these people are in development. They are more operational minded from the operational side of the company. And it's just an opportunity to make sure that the person that's coming in looks like, sounds like that they will be successful in our model, that they understand what we're about, what it's going to take to be successful. And as we tell them, we're looking to make sure that they are a good match for Pillar to Post, and that Pillar to Post, is a good match for them. Because if either one of those are off, it will not be successful long term, which, like I just said, our development people want it to be good for them long term, and of course, so do our operations people.
That's great. So, and a question came in that I'm not going to hold till the end. So I want to ask you, who has the final say that it's time to have the exit conversation with the franchisee? Is it your development team or your operations team?
It's the operations team.
Okay. And how about for you, Paul and Amy?
I'm trying to think of a time that we ever didn't both agree that was the right thing to do. So I guess we've never had to have it. We've never had to have somebody trump the other one. We've always said, yeah, it's time.
Yeah. Well, and it's probably too, it's like with employees, it usually takes you a little longer to get there than it should. So by the time you finally start talking about it, you wish you'd done it a little sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's start with you guys, Paul and Amy. How do you guys ensure that the metrics you're using to gauge success speak to common goals on the operations and the development side? So an example is, if your marketing team's goal is to bring in 500 leads and they bring in double that, they've been successful. But if the sales team doesn't convert them into deals, you're not getting those results. So how do you make sure that ops and development are both working towards that common goal? What are some actual metrics that you're using?
I mean, one of the easy ones that we can throw out there, which is just a call out to you in FBR, is our franchise business review satisfaction rankings and individual scores are, that's something that we're both very, very, very focused on, because clearly for ops, happy franchisees are usually successful franchisees and are drivers and good fits. And for development, I mean, you've heard me say this a million times, Michelle, we won't even let somebody get their hands on an FDD until they have completely reviewed the back end, the down and dirty information in our most recent FBR survey. So that's a very easy metric that we're both on top of, that we want satisfied franchisees.
Can I? And
well,
the nice
I was
thing,
going to say, and you guys are actually part of your bonus compensation is based on that feedback you're getting from franchisees, correct? Both development and ops.
Yeah, less of bonus, but it's more of our performance review.
So yeah,
right, in your review.
We have goals for every single staff person in the company, and then we have specific goals off the franchise business review that would relate to each department. You know, the marketing has marketing metric. The piece that's really helped is also we get custom reports. So I'm able to take the franchise business review survey and I'm able to look at it by coach and also by coaching type, because we have different type of coaching support. So I can look at that, you know, year over year. They will go in if there's, you know, a dissatisfied franchisee, they will have the conversation with them and try and find more, you know, why aren't we aligned? Why are you dissatisfied? What can we do to make improvements? And so that is a critical part. And then really looking at, you know, the age, our new owners, how are they validating? Was it what they thought, you know, that it would be when they got into it? Both from just, you know, an enjoyment to the financial piece and wearing all those different hats. So that's another piece. We also just collect standard metrics from our new owners along the way, and then we benchmark them to see how are they doing versus stores, similar milestones, you know, especially 30, 60, and 90 days. The new owner team will collect those, benchmark them, and then have specific conversations acknowledging what they have done well or, you know, areas of opportunity. And then the store owners can see also what other stores are in those groups, and oftentimes will reach out and have a great peer-to-peer discussion on how can, you know, they make improvements. And another key piece is we are really held to not only top line, but the profitability of the store. And so the new owner team and our operations team in general really studies and pores over the financial performance and provides feedback to the team and to the owners.
And we include those metrics in our item 19. And so we don't want people who will ruin our numbers, because that is a key part of the sales process for new candidates. They want to see, you know, what does that first full calendar year look like from a profitability standpoint, and what are the sales numbers? Those are part of our item 19, so it's real important for us too.
Excellent.
It's a circle, right? It's just, you know, if you don't get the right people, you're not going to get the right results. If you don't get the right results, you're not going to get the right people.
And I also I want to ask the Pillar to Post folks if you guys have other stuff that's in that you guys are using for specific metrics. But I also want to say that the next slide, I don't know, Mike, if I can have you flip it quickly. We have a data slide that actually supports what Amy was saying in that question about asking new owners if their expectations are being met. So we asked the question of the franchisees that take our survey, the total investment, including both time and money, has been consistent with expectations. The red is our top 200 franchise brands. And for those, 63% said strongly agree or agree, which is great. There's, again, still 40% that aren't feeling like the time and money conversation up front is what's happening when they open their doors. But the numbers for every other brand, when they're aggregated besides the top 200, is only 38%. So you have the majority of your candidates coming through and becoming franchisees are not having, their expectations are not being met. There's no alignment there. And it's so crucial that development isn't overselling or overpromising what's going to happen when they're in business, because you're setting up your operations team to never be able to deliver a good experience. So I want to go over to Pillar to Post, but it just really, this kind of mirrored what Amy was saying so closely. I just wanted to throw that up there. So Charles and Eric, any other metrics that you guys are doing to really help ensure that there's alignment between the two teams?
Eric, I've been jumping in, so you want to start, or I'll be glad to take it too.
Yeah, I'll let you start again, Charles. It's okay.
Okay. So again, Paul and Amy speak, and I can say ditto. So it really is the same. We've got to have happy, successful franchisees, and so in our Foundations for Success program, which is our first year program, we measure their, I don't want to say happiness, but it really is this what you thought you were going to get? Is this going according to the plan? And we take that and engage from that. And then, of course, we do franchise business review every year for our franchisees. Those numbers are important to every member of our teams. They're on all of our performance agreements. It's a very important piece, I think, for obvious reasons. So, other metrics than that, I could not think of anything significantly different than what Paul and Amy were speaking to.
Perfect. Okay, so we're going to go backwards and start talking about the more of the development process. So at what point in your process with a candidate does your operations team get involved in the decision to award a franchise? So let's start with Pillar to Post this time. So at what point when that candidate starts talking with you, do you get the operations team involved, if you do at all?
Do you want me to take this one, Charles?
Sure, go ahead.
Sure. So Michelle, I would say the latest case scenario is at the end. So operations is involved 100% of the time. As Charles was explaining earlier, we have that executive interview with either him or our president and CEO, who really give the final say on whether a franchisee is going to be awarded or a potential franchisee is going to be awarded a franchise. It also happens throughout the process, depending on circumstances. So because we are that service-based business, and we actually have multiple franchisees within the same area, the development team will connect with the regional director for the area just to get a bit of an understanding of some of the franchisees in the area and any kind of conditions within that area, and really what is going on, or if there's specific questions that potential franchisee has that would be best answered by connecting with the RD, then we're able to do that as well. So it's not necessarily a consistent path of, okay, here's the spot where they always enter, but most franchisees will connect with that operation side at some point through their discovery process. But if it hasn't happened through the discovery process, it definitely happens as part of that executive interview process.
Awesome. So for Wildbirds, how about you guys? How early on in the process are they getting involved?
It used to be that they would be completely involved in the pre-join the flock call, which is the same, just like Pillar to Post, with the executive call that was made by the ops team. So that was the way it worked. And then this year we've started rolling in, and I will tell you, we haven't hit we're not batting 1,000 yet, just because of timing is always so hard. But to get one of the new owner coaches in on a call that for us, it's before Join the Flock Day, before the COO call, after the FDD call, but on a business planning call, so that they have a conversation, they're able to get involved and communicate with the prospect when we are reviewing the non-financial portions of the business plan, more of the operation part of the business plan. And then they spend a lot more time enjoying the Flock Day with the candidate than I do, or than anyone from development. I mean, we really do the intro. Sometimes we're there at lunch, and then we come in at the end, and the rest of it is all meeting with the new owner team, meeting with all the different departments. So we're not involved in the Join the Flock Day hardly at all anymore. It's
and just for the audience to know, Join the Flock is your clever name for your discovery day. So it's when they come into your corporate office and right before they sign, correct?
Yeah, before they are given formal approval to move forward on signing anything.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Michelle, this might be getting ahead, but for the Join the Flock, after the intros at the beginning, the very first group that they meet is the new owner team, and that's a cross-departmental team who will be working with that franchisee, if all goes well, through their first year of operation. So it's a nice way to obviously start the meeting, and then the new owner coaches and myself will have lunch with them to just get a deeper dive and just get to know them a little bit better and find out their interests and background in more detail. And then we'll come back at the end of the day to also deliver, usually, hey, it's a go. And then that's a nice way to kind of pass on, after development, you'll be shifting and transitioning over to the highly qualified new owner coaches.
Perfect. No, this is the perfect time to talk about that. So I have one question from the audience that I think fits in really well here right now. I'll start with you, Wildbirds. When or in your development process, do you talk to candidates about their exit strategy?
Yes, we talk about it. Primarily, the conversation really begins when you're doing the FDD call, because you have to go through item 20, which talks about all the stores that, the second chart is all the, any transfers you've had. And in the validation, our candidates continue to validate throughout the whole process. Of course, they don't do all of it and then just stop. And the FDD in the exhibit, I can't remember maybe it's G, where they have a list of anybody who has left the system. So you begin the conversations there, and obviously you're working with a candidate who is purchasing an existing store. There's a lot of conversation about what they need to do in order to make it that same transition. But yeah, a lot of the conversation talks about the building of a business enterprise that has a lot of value when they go to exit. And so that naturally and organically, we end up talking about it. But I will say we don't have like a special module just about planning for the end. We do not have that.
It's more of a natural flow in the conversation.
Yeah, but I think, just this question makes me think that might be a really good additional call to have in the process, and because it might really help weed out, again, those people who are, we don't have many of them, but those people who are really buying themselves a job who are not what we want to, wonderful people, but we don't want to add them to our system.
Right.
So
got it. So for Pillar Post, Eric or Charles, do you know if that conversation is being had with candidates before they come on board? What's their plan to exit their business when the time comes?
Eric, do you know?
Yeah, I would say it's similar to what Paul said. So the conversation happens, but it is not a large piece of the discovery process. It's just probably one conversation.
Okay, perfect. So, and I'm going to stay with Charles and Eric. A question came in from the audience and said, what do you feel are the most valuable questions that your operations team should be asking franchise candidates? So I think that's to kind of solidify that, yes, this is the right person, or to throw up a red flag that maybe it's not the right fit. So Charles, it's probably more to you, Charles, what questions do you feel like the operations team should be using to dig out that is it the right person to bring on board?
Right. Specifically for us, we attract a lot of people who say to themselves, you know what, I know a lot about homes. I enjoy homes. I enjoy helping people. I think I would be a good home inspector with my background and the training and support that Pillar to Post can provide. If that is where it ends, that is likely to not be a successful franchisee in our system. And the reason is because so much of our success, you have to do the part that I just said. That has to be a given to start with, at least. Now, many of our franchisees continue to grow their businesses where they actually no longer do home inspections. They have multiple inspecting staff that do that for them, and they concentrate more on operating, managing the business, and even the marketing. But the marketing, the relationship building, this is a referral-based business. And so it really is a relationship-based business. And that has a lot to do with marketing. And most of our marketing, and don't get me wrong, we have all the electronic things, online, direct mail, we have all those things. But those are all supplemental to what our guys are doing on the ground, which is getting out there, meeting people, shaking hands, talking about what we do and how we can help people who refer home inspections. And so making sure that that candidate understands that is what it takes for success. That's one thing I said about our executive call that we're trying to root out even at that late date is, do you understand what it takes to be successful in our business? How does our model work? And is that what you're excited about doing? If it is, then that's how you get the business started. And that's how you get up to a functional level of success. Now, past that, we have all different types, and our system can afford all different types. We have very successful, very happy, satisfied franchisees who are very small. It's one or two people in their company. We have many others that would not be a picture of success, and so they're looking to go much beyond that. And so we want to know what is the picture that they're looking for their lives. And then we want to make sure that they understand what we have to do to get to that point, and make sure that fits with what they're looking to do. So I think that's the main thing is the fit really, really good. It does take capital to get started in our business, but not nearly the capital that it does on a lot of other businesses. So the financial side is important, but it's not usually the thing that stands in the way. It usually is that fit for the individual.
Perfect. So how about you, Amy and Paul, on your side? And I think I'll go to Amy on this one. What do you feel like are some good questions that you're asking of that candidate to kind of flesh out if it's the right type of franchisee for your system?
Well, we talked to them about describing a type of work environment where they really enjoyed the culture, and what did that culture look like. As they build a team of sales associates, what type of things would they like to create in the team culture? So just getting their approach. We also ask them, name a time of where they had a mentor, and describe, who that was and why they found value. Because the coaching part and a important piece is they're really mentoring them. So can they cite somebody? How did they use that mentor? That's also helpful. And then trying to really understand, do they have a good understanding of what the role of the franchisor is and what the role of the franchisee. So, as far as right now, we develop a whole series of marketing collateral and assets, but it's really their role to go out and ensure that they are finding ways to drive customers through the door. So just making sure we have alignment. And, you know, a lot of what Charles said, we agree with and go through that process, trying to figure out, do they really know what it's going to be like day to day in owning and operating a retail environment? I don't know, Paul, if you've...
Yeah, my favorite question that we actually have them right, I said actually twice, sorry, is define the role of the franchisee and define the role of the franchisor, so that they have a firm understanding that they are ultimately responsible for the success of their business. And then define what a business enterprise means to you and how are you going to get there.
I love it. Those are good. Okay, so let's go back to pillar to post to start with this one. How do you make sure training and support staff understand and support the expectations that are being set with those candidates? So I don't know if that's probably on Charles to start with, to really to make sure that they're understanding what they need to deliver on.
So just say that one more time for me. So that the
Absolutely.
Yeah,
yep. How do you make sure that your training and support staff that's not involved in that kind of development process, that they understand the expectations that are being set that they have to deliver on?
I think it's in some of my previous answers. By keeping, I think the appropriate thing that we're trying to accomplish is to have the recruiters paint the picture that is the reality of what we do and how we do it. So by sitting through, by understanding what we do, by being in the meetings, by sitting through the training, by even being involved in when we evolve training, when we evolve marketing pieces, when we change our brand promise from time to time on parts and pieces, most of the time we've got development people in those processes. And so to me, the real key is number one, the operations people have to deliver what we promise, what the plan is. And number two, to make sure that development people, that's what they're describing, that's what they're promising. And so as long as we can keep that overlap, as we initially started talking about, tight enough, I don't think we have a big problem there. Sometimes it does turn out that way because of clarity in the process, or a prospect's understanding or ability to understand exactly what's being said, whereas later on they understand it much better. Sometimes there's some discrepancy there. But generally speaking, I think making sure that both sides understand what the other side is doing and why is the key to keeping that as conflict-free as we can.
Yeah, well, and you said something I think that's very important, and I don't think it happens in all organizations, but that your development team and most of your company employees are going through your training. So they understand what's being said to that candidate. I think that's very, very important.
Yes.
So I'm going to have Wild Birds Unlimited address this last question, but as I do, we're going to be wrapping up the conversation part and doing all the questions from you guys that we didn't get to yet. So if you have specific questions for either brand or just in general you want to have answered, now's your chance to get those in. And then I'm going to go to Paul and Amy to talk about how do you guys make sure that your training and support staff understand and support those expectations that Paul is setting when they bring the candidates on board.
One of the things that we do is every new employee, and oftentimes we'll have existing employees who say, hey, I want to reset. We'll sit through and actually shadow through a full Join the Flock day with a new candidate, and we'll go through, I mean, we do on an annual basis. We use a virtual brochure to guide our candidates through the franchise development process. So we, on an annual basis, look at that to make sure that we are in alignment. And it happens more than once a year, but it happens once a year officially. It oftentimes will happen right after our annual conference too, because we unveil a whole, array of new support services and new exciting things that our franchisees will have access to. And then we, of course, we want to be letting our candidates know that because it's exciting and it's helpful to them as a franchisee.
Perfect.
Yeah,
and then oh, go ahead. Sorry, Amy.
Yeah, just as far as the new store team, I think that there's lots of benefit, but I had mentioned before that's a cross-departmental team, and it has 2 operations coaches on it. It has Casey, who's a training manager. We have merchandising that's on it, our nature education. We have marketing on it. And so it's a wonderful feedback loop. Because that all feeds into here's what we're seeing, here's what we're hearing. So how are we doing with our training and our curriculum? What needs to evolve? And so that's been a great addition to the structure on how we approach it. And it starts with the development, then the operations coach, and funnels to the training program.
Perfect. And then before I turn it over to Mike, you guys have talked a lot about how your teams are aligned and sharing in those meetings and communication. Did you do all of this work in-house to kind of do this, or do you have any outside vendors or consultants or speakers that kind of opened up the way that you do things internally with your operations and development team being connected, or is this all work that's been done in-house or has evolved from your teams? And Amy and Paul, if you want to share that, and then I'll go to Eric and Charles.
I guess I would speak to over the years. I mean, we have had outside companies come in, more of understanding who we are and our communication styles. It's been a bigger kind of company-wide where it would certainly benefit all of us. So we've done those type of outside services.
Yeah, I think it's just more organic for us, though. It's been in just the relationships have been around for a long time, and I mean, Amy has been grew up in our company and has been with the company, and I mean, I've known her since she's been 18. And our COO, who has been here for 25 years, I've been here for 29 years. You just sort of, when you work with people that long and you have common interests and common goals, you have that same value system plays out at work, and that collaboration and just having a commitment to wanting to do the best thing for your franchisees is, I think, the most important. So I think it's oftentimes it's more cultural. I mean, and getting to know Pillar to Post, that company has that same sort of phenomenal reputation in franchising of being really caring and thoughtful, and I think you either have it or you don't. I don't know that you can control.
There's a great. My team is always, I feel like, looking for how do we do better and improve. And there's a great courses, and they have a communication series, and I've had several of our coaches go through that on their own. And a lot of it was, how do I just communicate again better with the franchisees, and in turn, how do we better communicate internally? So they're really good about enhancing their skill set and pushing forward and ongoing learning and development.
Well, and I love your book club and your TED Talks that you're doing too, because that's a good way to keep everybody thinking. And then how about you guys at Pillar to Post? Anything that you feel like is been key in what you guys are doing or changing in-house?
I agree with the organic piece. I think it comes from that desire to do the right thing for franchisees and have as many happy and successful franchisees as we can. We do have really a pretty good wealth of external people that work with us on a variety of levels, and they work with us a lot, and we think of them as partners, not just outside vendors, and we get a lot of, and these guys, these people that I'm talking about, also work with a number of other franchise systems and have a lot of experience in it as well. So not only do we get our own organic growth and thought and evolution, but we also get great input from some of these very close partners that also have great insight into some other very successful brands. So I think when we couple all that together, that's where it comes from.
Absolutely. And, that's what we try and facilitate is the more you can connect with other organizations that are doing things right and just here's how we're doing it or here's something that we're struggling with and getting that feedback from others, I think it's a great opportunity to just kind of check in if you're doing things right. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike. I want to thank you for participating today. I hope that everybody is writing down some ideas and things to think about for your teams. But just really thank you for taking your time out to share with everybody. And Mike, I'll let you wrap things up.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you to our panel. It's a wonderful discussion so far. And thank you to our audience because we've gotten some great questions and comments along the way. And I think we've done a good job of answering some of them, but I do welcome any other questions you might have. We have a little bit of time here at the end. So let me jump in, and we have a couple questions that came in earlier in the conversation. We'll start with one of our attendees asked, what reporting structure do you have in place that ensures communications between operations and development teams? And I know we've kind of touched on this topic tangentially a little bit, and I don't know that we've had a direct answer to it. Pillar to Post team, let me start with you and whoever wants to take the question. Do you have any type of reporting to ensure that this type of communication is taking place?
I would say that just structurally, the way that it ties together like that is through the CEO. So there's not a reporting structure for development that, say, comes through me. And so I would say that pivot point there, where it all comes together, is with our CEO. But to be honest, that's not where the drive comes from, because there's so much connectivity outside of any kind of reporting structure. The development sees operations numbers on a constant basis. We see development numbers on a constant basis, and we're together a lot. So it does end up going through the CEO structurally, but to me, that's not what makes it work.
Got it. Okay, great. And Wildbird's team, do you guys have any sort of reporting that we haven't talked about that ensures the communications between the teams?
No, I did what Charles said. It's, I mean, it would truly, I guess, if you look at the org chart, the CEO, because both me, the CDO, and the COO report to him, but that's not where any of the motivation comes from. And honestly, I can't ever imagine a time that he said, no, you have to start doing this. We already just did it because we have these common goals. You know, the development goals and ops goals and system-wide goals are all combined, you know, in our documentation.
Sure, yeah. So it sounds like both teams here have more or less the same response, that there's, you know, not really something like that, or it all goes through the CEO, but it's not really the motivation for getting it done. So let's move to another question. We talked earlier about you know, who kind of has the final say in when there's a franchisee that needs to leave the system, and the follow-up question that we received for that is, who is actually having that conversation with the franchisee once the decision is made, and is it a joint decision, or is there a designated person that's doing that? Wildbird, let me stick with you two and hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah, generally, Paul and I would do a joint call. We may have the coach involved as well, because if the decision is made and we're going to work towards the exit plan, then all of us would be involved in helping them have a seamless exit. So I would say jointly.
All right, excellent. And Pillar to Post team, do you guys have a similar process?
I would say it is similar, except in our case, it does not involve development. But that's one of the notes I've written down from today's call, is to start thinking about that a little differently.
All right, excellent.
Hey, I want to just throw one thing. We have this, we call it project, of course, migration, because it's a bird thing. But part of this is also that, you know, we have some franchisees who are at a point in their career, in their life, where they're great franchisees, but they want to sell. And so some of them, and in some cases, we hate that they want to sell, but they do want to sell. They want to go on to another phase of their life. And some of them are also on this project migration list that we compile every year, because we want to add extra resources to help them do that. And face it, the reality is once the store goes on the list, they can have a tendency to kind of lame duck it. And so we want to get new, excited, energetic ownership in there as soon as possible. So this migration, or getting them to migrate or exit from the franchise, doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't a great fit. It could also just be because that's what they want, and we know that getting someone new in there is going to actually improve the unit economics.
Great. And Paul, I love that you wove in not just the migration pun, but also the lame duck. That was brilliant on your part.
Hey, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a few more questions, and they're sort of geared towards the development folks on the call, but I obviously want to invite the operations folks to chime in as well. And I'm going to start with one that asks, what are the operations or support differentiators that you are talking about with your candidates early in the development process? What are you highlighting? Paul, would you like to start with that and kind of point out what your differentiators are?
Yeah, the easy one is just this whole new owner team. This collaborative, multi-departmental team is a huge benefit to the franchisees. And then Amy has come up with this very unique and very efficient coaching models that franchisees choose. That's a whole other topic, but that is a big differentiator where a franchisee has to qualify for, but gets to choose the intensity level of the ongoing support that they receive on an ongoing basis. So those would be the two big support differentiators that I use in the development process.
Excellent. And let me swing over to Eric for that question as well, and obviously Charles, if you have anything to add, feel free. What are the differentiators that your development team is speaking with candidates about during those initial conversations?
Yeah, I think kind of similar to Paul, we're talking about, so we call it our Foundations for Success program. So it's really kind of the ongoing technical and business training that takes place throughout that first year, and the support of those startup coaches that they have throughout that first year. So that's really the big one, and then we can kind of go into the different marketing programs and we have and things like that, but really that Foundations for Success program.
Excellent. Okay, perfect. All right, there's a couple of questions here that I'm going to weave together. Eric, I'll stay with you. So question one, how informed does the sales team keep the operations team about the candidates that are in the pipeline? And then part two, are you reaching out to candidates that that didn't pan out for whatever reason to understand their experience and their feedback on the process? So two-parter for you. What thoughts do you have on those?
So I'll answer that second question first, just because it's a quick, easy answer. So we haven't, but that's something, or sorry, we used to not reach out, but that's something we started a couple months ago, and so far not much from it, but we're continuing to do it just to see what we can learn from it. And sorry, what was the first part of it, or the first question?
How informed does your development team keep your operations team about the candidates that are in the pipeline? Yeah,
so kind of the key point, and Paul said this earlier, that kind of the candidates are validating throughout the entire process, which is similar with us, but Really, once we've gone through the FDD, that is when we then we actually let whatever state that potential franchisee is located in, we let all the franchisees in that state know that we've got a candidate for the area, and the regional director that's part of the operations team. That's the key point, where we let them know we've got someone that kind of at this point we're considering seriously. And then ultimately, should they join us, then there's a transition call between the recruitment director and the startup team.
Okay, thank you. And Wildbird's team, same pair of questions. How informed is your development team keeping the operations team about candidates? And are you reaching out to some of those lost candidates to understand their experience with the folks that they spoke to?
Well, we do, after in the validation process, we always find out what they heard and who they heard it from. And our candidates are pretty transparent that way. Occasionally they'll say somebody said something negative, but they don't want to share who it was. We ultimately do find out because they have to submit a list of everyone that they've talked to. We don't then call them and give them heck or anything, but we have a strategy where we have an intranet. I'm sure most franchisors have a password protected intranet site. Every candidate who submits a qualification form, so gets seriously involved, they're listed on that intranet so that our franchisees know that if they get a validation call, they can quickly just pull that list up and make sure that that's somebody who is engaged with us at the Franchise Support Center. And our ops team looks at that list all the time too, so they can see who and where, because we always have the city of interest on there. And then, of course, if it's somebody who's looking at the purchase of an existing store, of course, the ops team knows exactly what's going on there because we keep them well informed.
Perfect. Thanks. And okay, so we have one question left, so we're going to wrap it up on this one, and it's a good follow-up to the points both teams are just making here. When you have candidates that are entering that validation phase where they're going to be speaking to some of your other franchisees, are there any questions or topics that you point them towards to speak with your franchisees about? Are you giving them any kind of questions to ask directly? Paul and Amy, is there anything that you're suggesting for them?
Yeah, we give them a list of questions that we suggest that they use. Of course, we identify that they can, we've had our attorneys review all these, so to make sure that we're covered. But it's a list of questions that they can use as a starting point. We're very clear that they can go off script if they so desire. But our franchisees are also very cautious about, they've been taught not to make any outside earnings claims, and then to be honest, and we can't control all of that, but we definitely do train our franchisees not to do anything that would put them in a position of becoming a salesperson. So yes, the answer is yes, we give them a full page. We give that to them when they, it's a download off our virtual brochure that gives the list of all of our franchisees, of course, and all of their contact information. That list, we have some visitation courtesies about calling, not talking to staff, making sure that you make an appointment with them. And then we also identify in the list all of the people who have been newly added to our system, so they can go back, I think we go back to 2010, so that they get an idea, because a lot of the candidates will want to talk to both brand new and people who are 3 or 4 years old. So, and we give that complete list.
That's great. So you're giving them a pretty comprehensive guide to go by and point them in the right direction.
Yep.
So Eric and Charles, just to wrap up with the pillar to post side, what are you suggesting, if anything, to your candidates as they enter the validation phase?
Yeah, we don't have a specific set of questions or anything like that we are providing. We will help them kind of segment, as Paul mentioned, if they're looking to talk to some newer franchisees or diversify who they are connecting with a little bit. But no, we don't have a question set.
All right. All right, well, that will do it for today. So thank you all. This has been a fantastic conversation, and thanks to the audience for some wonderful questions that have come in. The preview for our next webinar, which takes place next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, once again, that's up on your screen, and we look forward to seeing you all there. And until then, everybody have a great rest of your day. Thanks a lot.